And welcome, henchmen, back to another action-packed episode of the Deadly Podcast of Kung Fu, brought to you by the Villains of Man, where myself, JVD, attempts to traverse the continuity of Marvel's most prolific martial artist in Iron Fist and Shang-Chi. If you want to check out the podcast over on Twitter, please follow over at Deadly Kung Fu Pod. If you want to talk to myself, JVD, about the comics I'm discussing, football, wrestling, whatever you want, follow me over at Villains of Man. Now today we're continuing with some love for Iron Fist as we're getting into his epic called the Firebird Saga in Deadly Hands of Kung Fu number 19 through 24. This story is pretty awesome. There's a lot to tell in the breakdown, and there's even more to dive into when I start picking apart the book and things that are within. So strap in, this is going to be a very long episode. Probably the longest that I've done so far, and this would be episode 24, I believe. But the creative team for the book is writer Chris Claremont, who has taken over on Iron Fist duties. The penciler and inks is Ruby Nebrez, who did the Saga of the Gold Dragon for the last Shang-Chi story in Deadly Hands, and he also did Deadly Hands 10, which was Iron Fist versus the Steel Serpent. Going to hit back on that later. Letters are by Marcos Pelayo, and the editor is Archie Goodwin. Now we're going to dive into the very first issue of the book, which is 19, titled, Shall I Love the Bird of Fire? On his 20th birthday, Danny Rand wanders the streets of New York City, reminiscing on his young life up to the loss of his parents. And his contemplations are broken by the screams of a woman who he discovers is under assault by a mob of citizens. Upon saving her, she is grateful until seeing the dragon brand upon his chest, which sends the woman into a panic over someone named Dasha Khan. After proving that he means no harm, Danny takes the frightened woman to Professor Wing and Colleen Wing's home for help. Once safe, she reveals her name to be Jade, as she and Danny resolve their confusion over the symbolism of the dragon brand and that of Dasha Khan. As Jade tells him she has been searching for the Iron Fist, the Kohun Shichi enters Professor Wing's home, demanding they turn the woman over so they can free her of the Soul Slayer. I will probably not nail anything in Chinese again, and I don't even know if it's correct Chinese, because this is Marvel in the 70s, so I'm probably going to mess up, because there's quite a few names in here to use. Continuing on, Iron Fist jumps into action, attacking the messengers. As he summons his chi and strikes one of them, the energy rips open the fabric of reality and sends the Kohu Shichi, Jade, and Iron Fist plummeting into Fen 2, Land of the Dead. They fall into the court of Dasha Khan, the proclaimed ruler of the land and the man Jade had fled from. Behind him, a masked assassin silently stands. He explains to Iron Fist that Jade chose him as her champion to face him for her soul, which he intends to damn for all of eternity. As their duel begins, Khan pulls out a crystal and blasts Iron Fist in the face, rendering Danny blind as he is surrounded by charging warriors. Continuing on in issue 20, book's titled Soul Slayer, a fearful Jade, Dasha Khan, and his assassin watch as a blind Iron Fist proves he isn't helpless as he dispatches the warriors. Furious at his minions, Khan takes the crystal and burns one who begs for forgiveness to ash. He commands the assassin Silver Dragon to attack, who at first is hesitant, but upon being threatened by her master, KOs Jade and attacks Iron Fist. After intense battle, she defeats Danny and notices his treasured locket, then removes his mask, making Dasha Khan question her mercy. Seeing her take Iron Fist's prize locket, Khan demands that Silver Dragon that she crush the locket, considering that he created and controls her soul, slapping her and forcing her to break the locket. Iron Fist awakens to find Jade, Dasha Khan, and Silver Dragon gone, but his vision has returned. In a daze, he wanders the streets, thinking he has left Fang 2, but returns to New York City as he sees a church. When approaching it, something explodes in front of him, launching Danny backwards as an angry mob of men, women, and children rushes forward to drag Jade out of the holy building and tie her to an altar. A priest tries to save her, but a woman in winter clothing appears and burns him to ash. Iron Fist jumps into the mob to save Jade once again, but stops as he sees the face of the woman who is Heather, his dead mother, dressed in the winter clothes as she was when she died in the mountains. As she fires a poison dart, Danny sees the woman for who she truly is, Lady Death. Realizing his attacks are useless, Iron Fist runs to free Jade as Death summons the Soul Slayer. With no time to spare, he summons his chi and attacks, destroying the colossal demon in a massive explosion that wipes out the church and everything around him and Jade. Thinking he's won, Danny frees her from the rubble only to find Jade's soul has been taken. Continuing on with issue 21 titled, And When I Died. As Iron Fist and Jade recover, the mob returns and attacks. Being weakened after destroying the Soul Slayer, both Danny and Jade are captured and held down to be killed. Seconds before their demise, a mysterious man armed with a bow and arrow saves the day, freeing Iron Fist. As the battle begins anew, Danny is surprised as the men he is facing begin to take the forms of different men. All around them, the scenery transforms as well, allowing the group of the mob to dogpile Iron Fist. Summoning his chi, Danny launches them off, and with the archer defeats the rest. The man introduces himself simply as Bowman, servant and protector of the Firebird. An argument ensues between the two heroes as Bowman sees a romantic bond between Danny and Jade, and states that a living being has no right to be in Feng Tu. Having none of it, Jade the Firebird tells him Iron Fist has been by her side when the protector of the Firebird has been nowhere to be found. Realizing Jade will not leave Danny's side, the three begin to hide. While on the run, they are ambushed by a man Danny recognizes from Kun-Lun named Chun. Confused by the living man in the land of the dead, he informs Feng Tu is spell-cursed, and not even the Yama Kings, the lords of the realm, know why. Fearing for his friend, Chun takes the three to safety to Tuan, first of the Yama Kings. After introductions, Tuan is shocked to discover Iron Fist isn't dead, but walks Feng Tu, claiming he should have no power there. He states no one knows who Dasha Khan is or where he came from. He once came to Kun-Lun to learn of its powers and secrets, but was turned away. Then he brought war to Tenfu to rule the spirits from the heavenly city, and they were powerless to stop him. Taking one as a personal slave and assassin, Dasha Khan sought the Firebird named Jade, who contained the mystical soul of all of mankind. By destroying it, he could enslave both the living and dead. Tuan informs Iron Fist that Dasha Khan fears him because he has a potential power to destroy him, but there's a catch. Danny has to enter Feng Tu and become one with it. Without doing so, he will continue to see the world of the living and dead blend while he remains. To see Feng Tu as it truly is, Iron Fist must focus all of his chi, and when he does, the land changes into the legendary Kun-Lun Hell, as does the appearance of Tuan. As Danny is baffled by what he sees, the Yama King returns to Bowman and Jade, informing them that the hero is caught by the truth of what he sees. Tuan also informs Bowman that Iron Fist will be under his spell for 5 minutes, and that he sees no other choice but to trap him so Danny can give them the help he so desperately wants to give. Confused by the turn of events, Jade commands Bowman to stop as she confesses her love for Iron Fist. As the two argue over if she is capable of loving a human being, Bowman shoves Jade to the side, slicing Danny's spine in two and killing him instantly. Getting pretty interesting. But let's move on to issue 22 titled, To Storm the Gates of Hell. The image of Jade fades away as Danny falls through blackness before being confronted by a spectral version of Iron Fist. An epic battle ensues as the Wraith taunts Danny, claiming he must defeat death before he can move on to the afterlife. Gaining the upper hand, he believes the spectral entity is an illusion sent by Dasha Khan until it shows Danny its will is far stronger than his own. It then breaks his hold, revealing that it's Lady Death, then takes Iron Fist by the wrist and turns him to dust. Again, Danny falls through the blackness until he finds himself back on that fateful day in the mountains with his father, mother, and Harold Meacham. Only this time, he sees through the eyes of his father as Wendell gets stomped on by Harold and falls to his death, and he sees himself and his mom terrified. Immediately, he sees his younger self running away afterwards, and then turns to face the wolves that were hunting him and his mother. Through his mother's eyes, he watches as he is ripped from limb to limb. I'm telling you, Iron Fist, the most horrific backstory in all of comics. Said it once, then I'll say it again. Moving on, feeling the pain and fear she experienced, Danny wakes up in panic, screaming for his mother, and finds himself in bed and attended by Jade. Unsure if it's another illusion, she regrettably informs him that Bowman had indeed killed him. Confused after everything he's been through with death itself, Danny lashes out at Jade, striking her and demanding the truth. Shocked that someone was finally able to touch her, she explains to Danny that he is both alive and dead until he is reborn after meeting the Yama King, Lady Ming. Understanding he now faces oblivion or nirvana, Iron Fist asks Jade how he can exist as both while he cannot. She tells him she is now an ideal, neither living or dead, but once she was alive, eons ago before the history of mankind, when the slaves were set to the otherworldly Nagarai. One day, what some believe to be the one true Christian God, is what I'm assuming, brought the sun to the earth, reshaping the world and driving off the elder gods. Now free, mankind became no different than its former masters, and began killing, enslaving, and raping everyone. After falling victim to these horrible violations, Jade stumbled into a cave on the brink of death. Inside, she encountered a powerful blinding light that burned her alive. She found herself being reborn and changing, becoming one with the Firebird, the mystical embodiment of all that is good, kind, and decent in mankind. And now that her soul is gone, she will die and the Nagarai will return. Realizing he loves her as much as she does him, Danny promises to regain her soul. Hours later into the early dawn, Iron Fist, Bowman, and Jade sneak into Dasha Khan's citadel and ambush a patrol. As they go over their plan one final time, one of the patrol leaps up and injures Bowman, leaving him in no condition to sneak Jade into the citadel. With Bowman heading to open gates for the Yama King's army, Iron Fist and Jade find themselves confronted by Shadow Dragon on a narrow bridge. Moving on to 23, titled Bridge of Sorrow, Bridge of Pain. Silver Dragon warns the two lovers that they are on the Ku Chu Chow. That just sounds crazy. Otherwise known as the Bridge of Pain, and flowing below it is the Hao Noi Ho, the River of the Damned. She leaves Iron Fist with a choice: surrender or die, for any battle upon the Bridge of Pain must end in death, and those who fall into the water of the River of the Damned are erased from existence forever. Deep in thought over the events that had led him here, Iron Fist is caught off guard and struck by Silver Dragon. As the battle rages on, Danny believes Silver Dragon's voice is familiar to him, allowing her to gain an advantage. With every chance he gets to turn the tide by striking her in the face, the protective mask keeps Silver Dragon in a fight by absorbing most of the impact. Weakening more by the minute and on the brink of death by Dasha Khan. Her screams fuel Iron Fist strikes as he quickly defeats Silver Dragon and confronts the villain. With Jade at the blade of his axe, Khan thinks he has the advantage until one of his minions inform him that they have lost the citadel. Lord Tuan's army had entered through the secret passages while Bowman defended the gate for the main forces to enter. But with Jade in his grasp and her death approaching, Khan dismisses the battle as insignificant. Caught in the drama of the unfolding events, Iron Fist barely avoids Silver Dragon's sneak attack and counterstrikes. Realizing he has the upper hand, Silver Dragon reveals herself as Heather Ann, Danny's mother who had died 11 years ago on the mountain. Shocked by the revelation, she kicks Iron Fist and sends him over the side of the Ku Chu Chow. Barely hanging on to the ledge, Dasha Khan demands Silver Dragon finish Iron Fist off, but she struggles to do so. A flood of past memories crash into Heather, reminding her who she is and who she's about to kill. Remembering the moment she was enslaved by Dasha Khan, Heather pulls Danny back upon the bridge. As mother and son embrace, she is blasted in the back by Dasha Khan's crystal. The energy throws Iron Fist away from her as Heather falls into the Ku Chu Chow to be destroyed forevermore. Enraged at losing his mother for a second time, Iron Fist charges Dasha Khan, dodging the blast from his crystal to land a flurry of blows. Not yet defeated, the villain manages to blast both Danny and Jade, transporting all three of them to the land of the living. As Dasha Khan stands on the edge of victory atop a New York City skyscraper, the ghost of Iron Fist watches helplessly. boy, I am getting parched. But one more issue to go, number 24 of Deadly Hands of Kung Fu, titled The Angry Dragon Kills. Atop the New York City skyscraper, Dasha Khan uses his crystal, now revealed to be a soul gem, to reverse time and space, morphing reality into the time when the Nagarai ruled. With no other option, Iron Fist puts his chi to the ultimate test by summoning its full power in an attempt to bridge the dimensional gap. Concentrating with all of his willpower, Danny successfully materializes from the land of the dead to that of the living, immediately attacking Dasha Khan while he's surprised. With moments away from death and freeing the Najari back to the world, Iron Fist and Dasha Khan battles becomes fierce as both warriors come close to killing strikes, as Jade is moments from death. As Danny gains the advantage, the villain plays his final trump card, threatening to destroy the soul gem along with Jade and other souls inside. Unsure if Dasha Khan is lying regarding his mother, Iron Fist attacks with blinding speed, knocking free the gem as Dasha Khan falls to his death. Not risking losing both his mother and Jade's soul, Danny barely reaches out to save the soul gem as Bowman comes to the aid of Jade. Approaching them both, Jade notices the look on Iron Fist's face as Bowman fires an arrow, realizing the soul gem has him under its influence. Snatching the projectile and snapping it in two, Danny warns him to stay out of this as he informs them both the gem failed to control him. Iron Fist explains to Jade that he controls her soul and doesn't want to lose her because of losing everything else he cared for up to this point. Bowman asks if he is willing to sacrifice the human race for love, which Danny passionately answers yes, which angers Jade. She reminds Iron Fist that she too will lose him as well when she regains her soul and will be hurt just as much as him. Realizing they both need to do the right thing for mankind, Danny regrettably crushes the soul gem, freeing Jade's soul and transforming her into the solar phoenix known as the Firebird. Later on, Iron Fist questions if he's alive or dead and if his mother survived. Bowman assures him all is right and expresses that he understands how Danny feels about Jade. The archer reveals long ago he served a king who wished to unite all of mankind under the banner of right. Though Bowman loved and was loyal to his king, he and the king's queen fell in love regardless of their loyalty to the banner of right. Though it destroyed the king's dream of peace, he forgave them. Bowman leaves, revealing to Danny that he is the legendary Lancelot of Camelot, and that his penance for his sins was to protect the Firebird. As he walks into the misty early morning light, he parts ways with Iron Fist and tells him something important, that Jade had only given her love to one man throughout all the millennia she was alive, and that was to Danny Rand. Oh boy, that was a mouthful. That was like a good 19-20 minutes of breaking down these 6 epic issues in this Firebird saga. I really love this story. It's very D&D-ish. I love D&D. I love tabletop RPGs. If you don't believe me, go check out Last Tavern Pod, which is our D&D podcast, Last Tavern on the left. I cannot talk about how epic this story is and how much I love it. It's one of my favorite Iron Fist stories. And there's a lot to unwrap with this story, which is as I'm going to get to next, and I guarantee will probably be just as long as just the breakdown, if not longer. So I'm going to go ahead. You're going to hear from our sponsor. If I remember, I'll probably promo for one of my podcasting friends. And when I return, I'm going to break down and talk about everything in this book. And welcome back to the Deadly Podcast of Kung Fu. Myself, JVD, as I'm going to break down and discuss a lot that has to do with the Firebird saga here in Deadly Hands of Kung Fu 19 through 24. First, this entire story arc has 2 first appearances that are very important to Marvel, and both debuted in the Sons of the Tiger stories, which I did not cover. First is White Tiger in Dark Horse. I got DH as an abbreviation for Deadly Hands, and I usually make that as Dark Horse. But it is in issue 19, and the other is the Jack of Hearts, who's rumored to be in the upcoming She-Hulk here in August of 2022, who's oddly enough in issue 22. But anyways, the recaps of these books, man, I thought the recaps for the Saga of the Golden Dragon with Shang-Chi, which is two episodes before this, they did an awesome job with those. And they did an alright job with these. It's usually told within 4 panels of the second page. It usually leaves the bottom 2 panels to begin the new chapter of each story. And once we, in issue 23, it's a full page to recap the story. And oddly enough, 22 and 24 have no recap at all. So, and that's kind of a letdown because there's a lot that you need to know if you just randomly picked up one of these issues and began to read it. You'd be completely lost. The weird thing about one of the recaps in issue 21, it shows Professor Wing attacking Jade from behind with a sword, but he's never in issue 20 with the angry mob. He was last seen in 19 when the Hill Hunters, I'm not going to try to pronounce her name right now, come after Jade. So I'm curious if this was an error and Danny was supposed to see illusions of a mad Professor Wing with the mob while he's in Ting Fu. And it was edited out of the story and they didn't catch it when they were doing the recap. So I just thought that was really strange because it's just completely out of place. So a couple of important notes because I really want to just get some of this stuff out of the way before I really dive into all these characters. But I love origins told in flashbacks to help build the character. And this book's got 2 really good ones. And anytime Danny is overcome with some limitation in combat, there's flashbacks of him being taught in Kun-Lun to overcome these limitations. And I just love this with Iron Fist and these Shang-Chi books as I read them. And the first is when Dash Khan blinds him, and we see him being trained by Lee Kung the Thunderer, who is very rough on him, and we see that in the Marvel premiere stories. And he's teaching him how to blind fight with a blindfold on. And later, when he's outnumbered and weak, he reflects on the lessons UT taught him about strategy and how most skilled warriors are useless without strategy. And so just a little bit that adds to the origin of the character, and I really, really enjoy those. And also, there's some time referencing here, and I'm really trying to keep up with these. And when Iron Fist sees Death as his mom, he says it was 11 years ago. And this works out with Danny obviously being 20 because he entered Kun-Lun at the age of 9 and left 10 years later, would make him 19. And there's some more references to time, which I'll be covering in the next batch of episodes that end Marvel premiere of the Iron Fist run. Now, let's move on to a lot of these characters and a lot of dot connecting within the Marvel Universe, so this may take a while. So please be patient, and I hope you really enjoy a lot of the information I'm about to bring to the table. First, we're going to discuss Dash Khan, the demon sorcerer of this story, the main villain. First, his name differs throughout the story. It's either spelled D-H-A-S-H-A, which is how we first see it. And then in some spots, it's spelled D-A-S-H-A. So, I don't know if that's just some bad editing, some bad on the editor and the letterer, and they just missed it. I don't know, maybe there's some miscommunication. But I just thought that was weird. You don't ever see anybody's name misspelled in 2 different ways throughout 6 issues. It's really bad. But as for the character, his origin is unknown, except for being cast out of Kun-Lun after wanting to learn its powers and secrets. That's about as much as we get on a backstory. Then he later attacked Feng Tu with the power of the Soul Gem. More on that in a minute. It's very important. But we have no clue where he got the gem. We know that's currently in space with Adam Warlock and involved with all the Captain Marvel, Thanos conflict stuff. But it's in this, and at this time, it's still a brief artifact, even though it's in space with all the cosmic stuff. It's still a brief artifact, and at this time, Marvel is slowly ramping up the Soul Gems, which eventually become the Infinity Gems. So without this origin, with which we're getting very little of it, I have a headcanon going on, and I think it makes a lot of sense for this character. Go check out episode 14, which is Iron Fist faces the character Steel Serpent. And these 2 characters resemble each other far, far too much. And that could easily be Ruby Nuez's way he drew both characters, but I'm going to tend to think otherwise, and this is why. Interesting enough, the Firebird could easily be a continuation of the story, this whole saga. And much like Dasha Khan, the Steel Serpent, whose real name we've never learned, so his real name could be Dasha Khan. Both characters were both cast out of Kun-Lun. With Steel Serpent, he was cast out twice. He battled UT twice. He wanted their wealth and their power, and he never got it. And afterwards, when he learns that the Iron Fist is returned to returned to Earth, he goads him into combat and tries to trap him, thinking if he can kill Iron Fist, he can return to Kun-Lun and win. And this is where Danny turns the delayed death blow that Steel Serpent has been killing people with left and right against him. And at the end of that story, Steel Serpent just leaves, and we don't know what happened to him. It's his only appearance throughout Marvel history, because this is the first Steel Serpent, not Davos, who we'll get to meet later on in Iron Fist's history. So with an unknown fate. Now here we go. 9 issues later, we meet Dasha Khan, who can't conquer Kun-Lun, much like Steel Serpent can, so he decides to take over Thing 2 to gain power before attempting to do so again. Now, considering that Thing 2 is the land of the dead, and we know eventually the delayed death blow would kill Steel Serpent, it makes a lot of sense. He would arrive in this hell. The only catch is, he would have to know about dying within the boundaries of Kun-Lun. This is something I'll explain later on. It happens in the book. It's brought up. But he knows where Kun-Lun is, so maybe he would know such a thing and know that if he dies in the boundaries of Kun-Lun, even though the gate's not open, that he'll go to their, hell. So that would allow him to continue the plan, right? So here's some other points of interest that I was just putting together with these characters. Steel Serpent is stated to be an unstoppable blur of carnage at martial arts tournaments. And in issue 24, Dasha Khan is stated to be the greatest warrior of his age, so they could easily line up as the same characters. Second, both of their minions use the same archaic weaponry and almost look exactly the same. So there's another check mark. And when we meet Tawan the Yamaking, he states that Dasha Khan fears Iron Fist. And after Steel Serpent having his delayed death blow turned against him, it makes complete sense to be afraid of Iron Fist if he was to do that to you. So why would Steel Serpent want to fight Iron Fist hand to hand when this happened? Go grab a powerful artifact that you can blast him at range. And this would really throw Iron Fist off guard when it comes to fighting, because, you don't want to fight him up close. So it would make sense that you would go get a ranged weapon. So to me, in my headcanon, a lot of this lines up that this is the same character. But, that's... You can debate that all you want, but listen to 14, go read issue 10 of Deadly Hands of Kung Fu. Come back and read the story and you'll completely understand. Now, let's talk about that Soul Gem. Very, very important. So, thanks to the MCU and Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, everyone knows about the Infinity Gems, which were really called the Soul Gems almost all the way up till the 90s. So, and we really started to learn about these in the early 70s, and it was just the Soul Gem in the beginning. So, here's a timeline of events I'm going to just kind of rattle off. The first appearance of the Soul Gem was in Marvel Premiere number 1 in April of 1972, when the High Evolutionary gave Adam Warlock the artifact, and it had no name then. But it was named the Soul Jewel in Warlock number 3 of September 1972, and the name was changed in November 1974 in Strange Tales 178. Now, though the story with Dasha Khan began a year later, in 1975 in November, he refers to the crystal as a Soul Gem in Deadly Hands of Kung Fu 24. This is 17 months later, after the Soul Jewel is named the Soul Gem. So this is April 1976, right? So this would technically be the second Soul Gem. Now, 3 months later in Captain Marvel 45, in July of 76, we learn that there's a second Soul Gem. The head general of the Danubian Underground tells Marvel there are 6 fabled Soul Gems, each with a different power. Oddly enough, we catch a glimpse of this second Soul Gem at the end of Captain Marvel 41, which debuted 3 months before Deadly Hands of Kung Fu 19, and we seen Dasha Khan's unnamed soul gem. So, and these were all called soul gems, and literally, Thanos even calls them soul gems in the beginning of Thanos Quest. And towards the end of that book, he starts calling them Infinity Gems. This is all in early 1990, January to be exact. Now, what's crazy about this is, this has been written off, it's not a soul gem, even though it's considered a soul gem, but it's crazy enough, it's powerful enough to be an Infinity Gem. Not only do we see it disintegrate people, Dasha Khan begins to alter reality, or basically he reverses the timescape of modern reality, shifting it into the age of the Nagaria. I mean, I'm thinking that it was set up to be one of these soul gems. I really do. And I think that Marv Wolfman and Archie Goodwin, who are the editors for Captain Marvel and Deadly Hands respectively, nixed it due to Steve Englehart and Al Milgrom setting up all this soul stuff in Captain Marvel. So I think they nixed the idea of this soul gem continuing on, and that's why it was destroyed. So it kind of adds up when you think about it based on a timeline. It's just kind of crazy because you've always known there's been 6 Infinity Stones, but yet here there is another Infinity Stone back when it was called a Soul Gem. Back before all of this Infinity stuff started taking place with Thanos trying to grab the stones before his first death when he was turned to stone and Adam Warlock died. Now at this point you're either with me and you're enjoying this, or you just think I'm a madman. But let's move on to Jade the Firebird, which is going to bring up some more of this continuity nonsense. It's not clear if she's a slave to Nagaria when we first meet her, but we do see a dark-haired woman before the day the supposed one true Christian God drove away these elder gods from Earth. The next panel, we meet her, and she's chased down before becoming the Firebird. She explained to Iron Fist that she's basically the soul of humanity, representing the good in mankind, and if destroyed, we will all fall back into depravity. So it basically seems to boil down to that without the existence of the Firebird, the ideal of good does not exist on Earth. It also seems that she works as some sort of barrier for these Nagaria, these elder Cthulhu type gods is what I'm going to assume since they're elder gods, considering Dasha Khan needs her dead so they can return. Other than that, there's not much to the character except for one major resemblance to a major cosmic entity in Marvel, which is of X-Men fame, the Phoenix Force, which was strangely created by no other than Chris Claremont, who wrote this story. So, some events here. This is not as long, I promise. But the Firebird saga began in November 1975 and ended in April 1976. Jean Grey became the Phoenix in X-Men 101 3 months later in July of 1976. Both the cosmic essence of these characters, it predates the darkness that covered the earth before the Christian God brought forth the sun. So there's some resemblance there. And the Firebird represents the good in mankind and its soul, while the Phoenix represents destruction and creation and rebirth, right? So that kind of sets them apart. But, oddly enough, Jade has to experience agonizing rebirth to become the Firebird once she's destroyed. So, it's kind of weird, right? Now, even though it's been said these two things are not connected at all, the Phoenix Force does have a connection to Kun-Lun and Iron Fist, which we discover in New Avengers there in AVX. So there is a little bit there. Now what's crazy, and it's as crazy as the Soul Gem ordeal that I mentioned, as this almost kind of has the exact same timeline as the Soul Gem. So first, as I mentioned, Jade the Firebird appeared in Deadly Hands 19, released in November 4th, 1975. The Soul Gem was renamed in Strange Tales 1978, released in November 26, 1974. We see Jade in Deadly Hands 24, released on April 6, 1976, which is also when the Dasha Khan revealed the Soul Gem and it was destroyed. The second Soul Gem appeared in Captain Marvel 45, released in April 26, 1976. Jean Grey becomes the Phoenix in X-Men 101, released July 20th, 1976. So, this timeline with this Firebird and the introduction of Phoenix really lays on top of the soul gem thing that I brought up, and it's very strange. And as I was doing notes on the Phoenix, I just started to realize, wow, these just kind of really lay over. So maybe the editors in Marvel nixed Claremont using a legit soul gem, as I mentioned. So he decided to go further with this Firebird and change it to the Phoenix Force. Because, I mean, if you can't use the soul gem and you just created this cosmic entity, and you know you're not going to use it anymore, why don't you bring it to the most popular book at Marvel at the time? Right? I mean, if your idea gets nixed because of something major going on, why don't you take something small and make it major in your other big book? So, like I said, it kind of coincidentally lines up, or maybe I'm just crazy. Now, I know I'm already stretching time. That's going to equal the breakdown, but let's continue on with Lady Death since we're talking about crazy stuff. And yes, that Lady Death, the same main squeeze for Thanos or Deadpool, depending on what side you're sitting on in the fandom. But Danny faces off against her twice. And the first time we see her is she shows up wearing the snow gear that Heather Rand is wearing the day that she died. And this is when there is a priest trying to stop the mob from taking Jade to church. And Lady Death tells the priest, "Your God is dead, priest," and then disintegrates him. And then she mocks Danny by showing him her mother's face, which spurs him into attacking her to no avail. And then Lady Death just awaits for the Soul Slayer to come and kill Jade and take her soul. And the next time is when Bowman cuts him down and he comes into the afterlife. And here it is so cool. Lady Death is dressed just like Iron Fist. And just imagine Iron Fist, but the face is a skeleton. It is really, really cool. And she even lets Danny think that he's going to win, and then she just turns the tides on him and turns him into dust. And she looks amazing. I really love this imagery, and Ruby Nebrez does a really good job with making it look completely badass. And there's a scene when you're learning what Heather Rand went through when she died, and it's death, just an Iron Fist, and her arms are spread open really wide, like almost like a crucifixion. And underneath one arm is 4 panels tearing the beginning of her story into Fang 2. And then under the other one is the rest of the story. And it is really, really cool. And if I remember, I'll put some of these images up on Twitter. Now, the only reason I can think that Lady Death is involved in the destruction of the Firebird is the fact that it's the embodiment of mankind's soul. And this makes sense because the cosmic entity would want to bear witness to another of its kind dying. Because, we have all these cosmic entities in Marvel. You've got death, I should say even chaos and law. They're all abstract entities, like eternity and infinity. And, but being involved in capturing her makes no sense, in my opinion, at all. I don't understand that. But on the flip side, battling Iron Fist does, considering he is fueled by a celestial creature and Sholal the Undying. And personally, I like this idea that, a warrior who is, maybe the chosen of a god or a god themselves, battles death in their respective, versions of hell in their mythologies. And you see this a lot in Marvel. Basically, it's like Thor. Thor, every time he's in the throes of death, he's dying, he's got to battle off Hela, who rules hell. And then, it's kind of the same if you're, around Mount Olympus, you die and you go to Hades, you face Hades. And I know this is a bit off topic for this, but there is a really cool issue in Marvel's Wolverine Volume 2, and I even found it, just wanted to let everybody know, it's issue 48, and then later on, I think it's 57, where he actually has to battle the Angel of Death every time he dies. And they talk about this story that, every time he dies while his body is regenerating, he has to fight the Angel of Death to live. It's very, very cool. And just check that out when you're done with this. Let's move on to the Yama King Tuan and his connection to Wendell Rand, Danny Rand's father. We learned that he's the first ruler of Fen 2, which is the afterlife of Kun-Lun, and sometimes it's considered hell in this book. But when Heather passes, this is where it gets interesting. We learn that Wendell is the son of Tuan, who is shocked to learn the death of Heather. And apparently she's not even supposed to be there because she's not on Lady Ming's The List. I'm not really sure what the list is, but and this all leads to the mystery that's built up about UT claiming Wendell is his brother back in Marvel Premiere number 16. Check out episode 3. And before Danny leaves Kun-Lun. So if you kind of do the math and put it all together, this must mean that Tuan is UT's father. And I'm assuming that when Wendell came to Kun-Lun, that he took him under his wing and like adopted him as a son. It's the only thing that makes sense. And I'm sure that will develop as the more and more that the Iron Fist story plays out. But what's interesting, and I brought this back up with the death of, with Danny Rand having to die to actually be able to function in Fin 2, is we learn that when you die within the boundaries of Kun-Lun, is how you end up in their hell. And the Yama King tells Danny, that he regrets his father didn't die close enough to be entered, but his mother was. So that just shows you how precise you have to be, because Wendell Rand died first, and then Heather died later on. So, you have to be pretty precise to end up here. And the crazy thing is, this holds true for most of the other realms in Marvel. And if you think about it, I just mentioned Thor, if you die, you end up in hell, in the Asgardian hell with one L. Or, you end up in Valhalla. If you die in, Earth, you usually end up in Mephisto's hell or heaven. And even if you die around Olympus, you end up in Hades or Elysium. So, and this is a concept that really keeps holding true throughout Marvel history. And I'm glad that we get to see this here. And let's talk about Thing 2, this mystical land that's created by Chris Claremont. By all means, I do think it's completely fictional. I couldn't find anything that made it real, so he's created this on his own. And you learn some rules about it as we go. And basically, upon arrival, you must drink the Mi Hu Tang, not to be confused with the orange drink Tang, which is the broth of oblivion, and it's brought by the Yama King, Lady Ming, who I've been mentioning. And once you drink it, you'll remember nothing about your own life. It's a clean slate once you're here. But next, you're to be judged by the Yama Kings, and either you're going to be reincarnated into a harder life based on your past crimes, or you'll be allowed to transcend into nirvana. And then also here we have the Chu Chao, which is the Bridge of Pain, the Hao no Nai Ho, which we learned, which was the River of Damned, and if you fall in it, you're destroyed forever. And then we have the Kohu Shichi, which are the messengers who see souls, or the Hell Hunters that we see in the beginning of this book in issue 19, which are, we do have names, and I didn't go over them, which is Nu Tao the Black and Ma Ming the White Ox. And I don't think they're from here. They seem like maybe they're disguised demons that work for Dasha Khan. It's really hard to say because this is supposed to be an afterlife, almost like a place of purgatory, but it's like peaceful. So they don't seem like the type of denizens that would live there. Very important part of this book. I want to get to it. Dimension breaking chi. And we've seen this in the past before with Iron Fist. Now, here in the beginning, when he's fighting these two that I just mentioned, he strikes Nutu the Ox, and it rips open reality and sends them into Thing 2 when they land before Dasha Khan. I'm not sure how that works. It's completely confusing, but it did pour 4 people into the rift, but left Colleen Wing, who is involved in the battle. And I don't understand that, but I guess that's just plot-induced, right? But she was defending Jade. She should have been pulled into this. But based on the action, you would think that, like I said, she would be pulled in as well, because she's fighting both these two with Iron Fist. Now, on top of this, what's really odd is they just happen to land in front of the villain. But like I said, plot. Now, this isn't the first time this has happened. Back in Iron Fist, when in Marvel Premiere, issue 22, which would be episode 8, if I'm right, The cleverly named ninja pulls Danny into his pocket dimension that he resides in when he doesn't have a human host. This is a great story. Go back and read it, listen to the episode. I love this story. But when he uses his chi to strike the ninja, it destroys the dimension and the ninja itself because he's the anchor to reality. So right there, he destroys another dimension, which apparently rips open reality and sends him back to the mortal plane. But the only difference here is that the ninja is the anchor to the pocket dimension. So this made me think that maybe something on this messenger from hell had something that Danny Rand could strike, because there was a plate that was on his chest. Apparently that's not the case. So they just simply fell into the realm. There's no way to explain it. But yet when Iron Fist faces the Soul Slayer, this giant demon that Dasha Khan wants to feed Jade to, his chi causes a massive explosion that levels everything around them. So maybe it wasn't the Messenger of Hell's soul, but since that's an important device to the story, it's anchored to Thing 2. And when his physical body was destroyed by the chi, it caused a rift between the planes to pull them back. So that's about the only way I can explain it. His soul was anchored to that realm, and once his physical form is destroyed, it just ripped open reality to pull him in, and they just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Other than that, I have no other way to explain it. So, the last important thing I want to talk about here is my favorite thing about this story, and it's the big twist, that the Bowman is Lancelot. And I completely did not expect it. It's completely well written for you not to catch on. But what's strange about this is I got to looking in Lancelot's history, Marvel, and he is actually treated completely separately from the Sir Lancelot character that we've seen with the Black Knight and whatnot before this. But here's a weird thing. Oddly enough, that Sir Lancelot, his last appearance is in Marvel Premiere number 14. And Marvel Premiere 15 is the first appearance of Iron Fist. And that's the last time we see him before the debut of Iron Fist. So, and not only that, he's only appeared 3 times after that appearance. So I don't know why these people aren't considered the same person. It makes a ton of sense. The only thing I can see why it's not is because Sir Lancelot actually meets the Thunderbolts because they travel back in time at one time and meet King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table and stuff. So, and this is it within issues 169 and 170 of Thunderbolts, and that's the only reason I could think that they would keep them separate. Now, what's interesting about the reveal and all the issue referencing I brought up earlier is that Chris Claremont created Excalibur in late 1987, and guess who a member was that of that team was? Rachel Summers, the Phoenix, which kind of ties this all back together. In the end, Sir Lancelot, who is like the right-hand man of King Arthur, who wielded Excalibur, which Captain Britain wields in that book, gets to team up with the Phoenix Force. Too bad Claremont never made that connection and had this Lancelot in that book. But I'm going to wrap this up. I love this story. I think it's great. I can't recommend it enough. It is a long read, as you can tell by this episode. It's the longest episode I've recorded. But I'm JBD. You can follow me on Twitter over at Villains Man. If you want to follow Deadly Podcast of Kung Fu on Twitter, please do so at Deadly Kung Fu Pod. If you want to follow everything with the Villains Man, you can check out the Villains Man over at Twitter at TBD Podcast, or find them wherever you are at on social media. If you like our music, check out Rushing Tiger by Kuro over at SoundCloud. Give it a couple listens. I'm pretty sure that he'd appreciate the bump and ticks. But remember, guys, in the end, support your favorite podcasts, support your local comic book shops, and keep reading comics, guys.